Jack Daniel's releases batch 3 of their 10-year Tennessee whiskey. This one surprisingly comes in 10 proof points lower than the 12-year that was just released. Comes in at 97 proof. And mash bill on this one is still 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. MSRP on this one is about $85. I think I liked the 10-year better than the 12-year. Last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know which batch I had. I can't remember if I had batch 1 or batch 2 of that 10-year release. But regardless, definitely excited to get into this newest release of their 10-year, guys. Without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so as I stated, this one is 97 proof, 10 years old. Mash bill, again, is 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. Let's get in the nose. So this one actually comes off very oaky further into the glass. Further away from the glass, it's very rich in honey, but there's also like this little pipe tobacco kind of aroma there further into the glass. Further away from the glass, it's a little more sweet on the sweeter side. It almost reminds me of like a little bit of molasses, and it has like this almost like this slightly kind of bready feel to it. So it almost reminds me of like a pancake. And then further into the glass, it gets a little darker and richer with some of that oak and then some of that like tobacco there. Let's get the first sip, guys. Cheers. So as I thought, on the front of the palate, it gets very dark, very oak forward. But as some of that oak starts to die and fade away, I get this kind of sweetness, like a funnel cake. A little bit of that like powdered sugar there. I was gonna say confectionery sugar, but that oakiness definitely lays down pretty heavy there on the front and middle of the palate. And as you get into the back, again, that tobacco note that I was starting to pick up there on the nose, you do get a slight little bit of tobacco, some black pepper there as well. So really kind of oak dominating there on that first sip. I do like that sweetness that kind of started to make its appearance there on like the middle of the palate, like that funnel cake, confectionery sugar. But definitely kind of sits there too, like that 12-year did. It kind of just sits and kind of grabs a hold of the palate. Let's get a second sip. So there's this note that I don't really get with a lot of Jack Daniels, but this almost there's like this like cherry vanilla. It's like a cherry vanilla kind of like tobacco that starts to like really make its appearance there on the back of the palate. Front of the palate, that oak presence is still there, but still getting some of that like confectionery sugar, like funnel cake kind of vibe there on the front and middle of the palate. That oakiness, that like dense kind of oak is starting to kind of fade away a little bit after that second sip. It starts to fade away, but it's still the viscosity and the oils from this one still like kind of really grip onto the palate, and it leaves just like this kind of silky film across the palate. It actually has a medium finish to it. But that cherry vanilla like tobacco there on the back of the palate with like some spiciness from some black pepper really kind of comes through and gives you, it's a very unique kind of experience there, having those flavors kind of intertwine with that tobacco there. Let's get a last sip. So third sip got very interesting. So some banana started to make its appearance there on the back of the palate. Almost like an overly ripe banana started to make its appearance there on the back of the palate with that cherry, with that vanilla, some of that tobacco. And then like as you kind of gravitate towards like the front of the palate, that sweetness is still kind of maintained. And it's transitioning into the back, so that oak, that influence from the oak has really kind of started to die down. You know, on the first sip, it was like kind of overly dominating. Then it started to die off on the second, and then this last sip, I mean, all these different flavors that are kind of coming together, that pipe tobacco too, that cherry vanilla, pipe tobacco, banana, black pepper. It's just like spun into this ball, and it's just kind of like mingling around the back of the palate and into the finish. But I think that, again, the oiliness and like the saturation from this thing is really kind of letting it set in and bite. It's definitely a whiskey that you can sit down with and really kind of like take a sip and enjoy it for a little while, because the flavors do kind of attach. So you're not, chasing after those flavors quickly. So it is very interesting. This has a very interesting profile. I'm going to have to get into this a little bit more. This is my first sip of the day. I want to try this a little later on and see if those flavors kind of maintain, or if it was just kind of like a one-off. But definitely getting those banana and cherry and vanilla and pipe tobacco and black pepper there, all kind of in the back of the palate and into the finish. Very, very interesting. Again, that funnel cake kind of confectionery sugar sweetness there on the front of the palate, with some of that kind of really deep, dense, rich oak, which kind of faded away towards the end. But nice, very flavorful tenure here, Jack Daniel's. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to give a big shout out to the team over Jack Daniel's for supplying with the sample here to review on the channel. Guys, $85. Definitely a flavor bomb for sure. A lot of different flavors going on this one. Don't be fooled by that big, bold oak presence there that you'll get maybe on that first and maybe second sip. That does die down a little bit after like that. That's, again, that second and third sip started to kind of disappear and kind of really open up to these different flavors, stuff that I've never got on a Jack Daniel's before, which is very interesting, because I love Jack Daniel's. I love what they put out. But the flavors that I was getting on this 10-year is something that's a little different for me. It's definitely in the wheelhouse of unique to me. But I liked it. I do think it's interesting. I want to go back later on and see if I do get those same flavors, since this was my first sip. But either way, Jack Daniel's always putting out something fun, exciting, and delicious, guys. If you're looking for more reviews like this, hit the subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Until next time, guys, say Dusty.